Jack here, owner of Hockey Alley, to bring you back hockey history. Today I have athletic trainer for the Los Angeles Kings. He has done over 2,600 consecutive games. Pete Demers. I'm going to be asking him a little bit about how he got started and what players he dealt with over the years. How are you doing, Pete?
Great, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on and talking to me on my channel.
Okay, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. And you've been an athletic trainer for over 40 years, over 2,600 consecutive NHL games, which is incredible.
Yeah, I was lucky. I'm sick some days, but you just go to work anyway.
Wow.
And in fact, I had knee surgery one day after practice, and that I was on the job the next morning. So that's the way it goes.
Yeah. And you started as a stick boy at the age of 12 in Providence. How did that happen?
Well, I lived not too far from the rink, maybe 3 or 4 blocks from the Rhode Island Auditorium, and we'd go down there, and the players in the American League, great players, and they were kind of our idols, and we hung around, and we helped out on the ice, helped out working on the ice. There was no Zamboni. We used scrapers, and then we used choppers along the edges, and then they had a barrel. They turned it sideways, and a pipe came out of it, and there was a rag on the pipe, and the water came out through little holes in the pipe, and that's how we did the ice. Pushed the barrels around. The older guys pushed the barrels, but I was one of the scrapers. And then I was always helping out the visiting team trainers when they came in. I'd help them a little bit, and then I ended up being the assistant stick boy for quite a while before I went into the Air Force.
Wow. And how many minutes does it take to do a whole ring compared to a Zamboni? Was it a lot quicker or did it take longer?
No, it would take about 15 minutes. I'm not, during the intermission, you could get it done. Yeah. Sometimes we just do some scraping. If it was like high school hockey or college hockey, we just scrape after the first, and then maybe after the second, we'd make some new ice.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And people haven't ever seen that. I mean, with the barrel and everything, people have not seen that, and that's just...
Yeah, you could probably look that up on the internet, but I know in Toronto, there's in the concourse in Toronto, they have one of those barrels, painted Toronto Maple Leafs, and 2 big tires on it, and yeah, whenever I go to Toronto and see that, I say, boy, that brings back great memories.
Yeah, definitely. And you were also in the United States Air Force, and you played hockey for the Army team. Can you tell us about that one, please?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique situation. I brought my skates and a stick to Alaska when I was there, serving. I was a mechanic on an RB-47 reconnaissance plane, and it's a B-47 bomber. They open up the bomb bay, and they put 3 seats in there and a lot of electronic gear. And so I was a mechanic on that plane, and stationed in Alaska, 60 below some days, just like terrible. When you walk from the chow hall to your barracks, your milk freezes in your pocket. But anyway, we had the plane parked out on the ramp, and the snow plows had plowed a lot of snow up in the back of the plane, so I had an idea that maybe I'd fire up the engines to see if I could make a rink. So I did that and had a nice little rink going in there, and I was skating there one night in the dark with the lights on, and this was an Air Force base, but the Army provided the MPs, military police, to patrol, and a guy stopped his truck and came out and said, "Hey, why don't you come and play with our Army team? We play every 3 or 4 nights a week, and we have games against other teams." And so he said, "I'll pick you up." So he picked me up the next night, and it was 26 miles to the Army base, Fort Wainwright, from where I was, and the rink was outside. And they welcomed me, and if it was colder than 30 below, we wouldn't practice outside. I mean, it was just like terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
In fact, I got frostbite. Up there. I had new skates on. I had new skates on with thin socks one night, and I told the captain, I told the coach of our Army team, who was a captain in the Army, that my feet were freezing. He just said, "Stay out here." And at the end of practice, I took my skates off, and my feet were white.
Oh, man.
He said, "Put your boots on and get back to your barracks and back to your base." And I had to hitchhike. I hitchhiked back and forth, 26 miles.
Wow.
You'd see moose and everything at the top and on these big snowbanks. But anyway, yeah, that was really fun to go and play for the Army team, Fort Wainwright Rangers, and yeah, had a lot of fun doing that.
That's awesome. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. And you also joined the Springfield Kings, which was the Kings farm team in the late 60s, correct? Or mid 60s?
No, late 60s, yeah. 60s. I started in Providence. I went into the Air Force. When I got out of the Air Force, this is another little quick story. I went down and worked at Quonset Point Naval Air Station and as a mechanic on reconditioning planes. And but then the trainer in Rhode Island Reds, who I'd known since I was a little kid, he was getting old and he needed help. So I used to go and help him. I worked the night shift from 4 to 12 at the Navy base, and then in the morning I'd go to the rink and work and help him. And but then it was just getting too much for me to do both things. And I had a nice job with the government. People were saying you're crazy, but my passion was hockey. So wow. I went to work $75 a week. And I was working tremendous hours, but I loved every minute of it. And so I worked with him for 3 seasons. And then I went to Columbus in the International League as the head athletic trainer. In the meantime, I had been going to Brown University and University of Rhode Island to get my education. And then in 1970, I got my certification through the National Athletic Trainers Association. I worked 1 season in Columbus. And then Frank Christie, he was a trainer in Buffalo in the American League, who I had helped him when I was a stick boy. And he knew Johnny Wilson, who was the coach in Springfield, and got in touch with Johnny and said, "Hey, I got a kid for you," because he needed a trainer. And I went to Springfield, and I worked 3 seasons there. We won the Calder Cup 1 year. We beat Providence, which was great. And then I went to L.A. in 1972 to 2006. And I still do a lot of stuff alumni-wise. I go to the Mission Feed the Homeless, and we have charity events. In fact, we have a golf event next week.
What is it called?
It's called Par T. It's at that Par T course. And so I don't play golf, just a little bit, but I'd rather chase the fish around than chase the golf ball around.
Yeah, well, you're an avid fisherman. We're going to talk about that also. Springfield, was that owned by Jack Ken Cook, the owner of the Kings back in the day?
Well, that franchise was owned by Mr. Cook, but Eddie Shore, famous Eddie Shore, he ran the rink.
Okay.
And he rented all that space from the Eastern States Exposition. It's a big fairgrounds. And he ran it, and he was really in control of everything. It was unbelievable. And he was watching all the time at the games. And then in between the periods, this is just a story. Above our locker room, he had a room where he played golf. He hit golf balls. And we'd be in there trying to focus on the game in between the periods, and you'd hear these balls bouncing off the ceiling. He'd be playing. And it was really, really funny. Guys all got a kick out of that. And then he was... When the game ended, he wanted everyone out of the rink as soon as possible. And my wife was there and waiting for me. We only had one car, so rather than wait in the car, she'd go in the ladies' room and hide in there. But Eddie would come in with a flashlight. It would be dark in there, and she'd have to stand up on the toilet. Many times he'd always do the same thing. And he'd shine the light underneath the stall, see if anybody was in there. And then another time he came down and knocked on the door in the end of one of the periods and told me that one player, now I can't even remember who that player was, but one player, he said, his skate blade needs to be moved over because he's not getting the right edges when he's turning.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so go and get his skate. And, and here's Eddie Shore talking to me. And so I went and got the skate. I went over in the skate room and took the blade off and drilled new holes in the sole and re-riveted it and got that guy back on the ice. And but he was a pretty firm guy, but a nice guy. There's so many Eddie Shore stories about, even not when it was the Springfield Indians, he tied a rope to the back of a player, a goalie in the net, and if the goalie went to go down, he'd pull on that rope and to hold him up, to make him stand up.
I was going to ask you about that, believe it or not. That was my next question, if you ever saw him do that. Did you see that?
No, I think it was Jacques Caron was the goalie, but I wasn't there then, no.
And I heard Don Cherry call it Devil's Island. Why was it called that? What was, because of...
I don't know.
No. Did he want everybody...
I can tell you Don Cherry... Pardon me?
Oh, did he want everybody out of the rink for a reason?
Well, he wanted to have the lights off and the building secure. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Wow. And anything else happened in those years with Columbus or Providence? Anything that people don't know about?
Well, we could talk all day about all these different things. Nothing comes to mind right now, but when the stories start to flow, they just come out.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It was a lot of fun being. It was a lot of fun being in the American League, and the home team, the parent team was not there. The Kings were in Los Angeles, and all the big management was in Los Angeles, so it was less pressure on the players that were in Springfield.
Yeah.
Because the bosses weren't around,
Yeah, and you do a lot of things. You're the jack of all trades. Can you explain what an athletic trainer does back in the day compared to today?
Well, we all have the same amount of training, and the sport's no different than other sports. All the injuries are pretty much the same, except hockey. You have more back strains because the players are bent over when they play. It puts a lot of stress on the low back and a lot of stress on the hamstrings, so you have to keep the guys stretched out a lot. And, then we have, in the early days, all those lacerations. And the trainer in Providence, when I was there, learning from him, he taught me how to stitch players up. And I didn't do that much, but occasionally. In fact, I'll just jump to we can get back to what we're talking about, but I went to Tampa maybe like 2 or 3 months ago with a player, Dave Gans. Mm-hmm. He's a player that played 6 games with the Kings, but he got hurt halfway through those games, and I was helping him a lot, and so he's become a fishing buddy, and we went down to Tampa, and Dave Gans played junior with Dave Andrechuk.
Oh.
And Dave Andrechuk is the community relations director in Tampa Bay Lightning, and so we had tickets to the game, and we went to the Chase Club. And we're up there, and Phil Esposito was there, and so Dave Andrechuk said, "Hey, you want to say hello to Phil?" So I walked over and tapped him on the back, and he turned around, and man, he was so happy to see me. He said, Pete. He said, "You stitched me up." No, I mean, I had no relationship really with Phil Esposito, except that we're all family. But one time when the Bruins were in town, we were practicing, and Phil got cut and on his chin, and the trainer Dan Canny sent him into my room so Dan could stay out by the ice. And I said, "Well, I'm just going to patch you up a little bit here, and then I'll take you over to the hospital and we'll get you sewn up." He said, "No, I don't want to do that." He said, "Just stitch me up." So I took him in the doctor's room, closed the door, and stitched him up. And he remembered that, and he just mentioned that to me a few months ago. He was so happy to see me, and that's great. See, that's why it all comes back to family,
Yeah.
Like I always say that I could call Phil Esposito right now and say, Phil, I'm in trouble. He'd be on the next plane, and I do the same thing for him.
Wow.
And that's just how we roll,
Yeah.
So I want to get back to what we were talking about now. I kind of forgot all the different jobs that we have.
Yes.
So I'll just tell you how it was. It was just one trainer and one assistant trainer or equipment manager or helper, whatever you want to call, and we did everything from the laundry to the cleaning of the floors and the jerseys and sewing the socks and ordering all the gear and equipment, all the skates and sticks, and you'd be doing some ultrasound on a player, and you'd be on the phone ordering a guy's order for his sticks, too heavy, too light, too whippy, not enough curve, all these different aspects these players had about their gear, and one trainer, he did it all. But that's why I'm so fortunate to be able to go through the whole circle, the whole full circle of minor league, and then to come to the NHL. And now things have changed so much. There's one trainer, head athletic trainer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a director of sports medicine, they call him, kind of oversees. I'm not sure what that guy does, but then there's an assistant trainer, and then there's a massage therapist, and there's a physical therapist, and there's a strength coach, and there's 2 equipment managers, and there's 7 people traveling.
Wow.
In the past it was just the 2 of us, and we unloaded the bus or the truck and hung the gear up at night, went back to the hotel and took care of our players, and that's the way it was. Now even at home, they have an assistant trainer at home for the injured players, and then they have a strength coach also along with that stays home.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, the truck driver would just go out to the ice and bring guys some water and stuff. But it was such a liability, and management never realized that in those days. I remember telling George McGuire, God bless him, he's passed away, but I remember telling him that, George, we need an ambulance in the rink.
Yeah.
He said, well, you can call McCormick Ambulance Service. They're right across the street if you need them. They ran a funeral home and an ambulance service.
Both.
In L.A., in Inglewood. They're right across from the Forum. And, and just so scary. A guy could be laying out on the ice, and you need these people, these EMTs and the paramedics with all their experience and expertise. You need them.
Yes.
And, well, it's too expensive to get an ambulance in here, and that's what they tell us. And, and now it's just like, it's unbelievable. They serve the players breakfast when they come in the morning. Then they practice, and after practice, they go in the gym and work out, big gym. And then they serve them lunch. They have 2 full-time chefs that work in the training center in El Segundo.
Wow.
And then in the early days, the players would come in at 10 o'clock, and we had one bike in Culver City. They hung their clothes on it. And we had a pair of dumbbells, and they hold the door open with that. And that's just the way it was. I mean, it was the conditioning was done on the ice, bag skating 6 times around, and see if you could do 6 times around in a minute and a half. And if we lost a game, the players, they just torture them the next day. And even we had a coach that didn't want water on the bench. He said, if you have a 1,200-pound racehorse and you put a pound on them as a handicap or something, I don't know how they do that stuff, but it's kind of the way he explained it. So I don't want players to be drinking water. They're adding more weight. So we finally got him to get us, let us give the players some ice on the bench, and then convinced them finally to have water. Now everybody has their own water bottles and Gatorade and all kinds of supplements and everything. And I remember I had a review at the end of one season, and Robbie Fatorik was the coach, and then Rogie called me in. Rogie Vachon was our GM. He called me in. He said, Robbie was complaining that you were eating a sandwich in front of the players.
Oh.
And Rogie told Robbie, so, well, what do you think? The guy was probably hungry. He was here since 6:30 this morning, And now they're serving him full-time meals, and everything is so focused on rehabilitation and off-ice training and nutrition and strength, flexibility. So, but I was so fortunate to be able to see all this big turnaround, and it was all about an investment. You know, you have all this money you're investing in these players, so you got to give them optimal care.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when I was skating at Culver City, I used to skate every day public session. I used to see you carry those bags up to the locker room, to the dressing room,
Tell
up
me
and
about
down.
it. Oh, I know.
And
9 trips up the stairs.
I remember seeing that.
We had a set of gear there, but you have to still have the skates, the goalie gear, the coach's gear, towels, and any other supplies you might have. 9 trips up and down. I had cheeks of steel doing that back then.
It kept you strong. Kept you strong today too from doing that all that.
Yeah, that was quite a rink. That play. I'm sorry that they tore that down. Oh, they didn't tear it down, but they made a Harbor Freight out of it.
Oh.
But that place is a national treasure in Culver City, and it's too bad it's gone. You know.
Yeah. I remember I skated there every day back in the 80s, early to mid 80s. And when did this all change where they got more trainers and more equipment managers? What year did it change about?
Well, it started to change a little bit in the 90s.
Uh-huh.
We were able to hire a massage therapist, and then in the late 90s we were able to hire a physical therapist that would come in and help us and take care of our players when we were on the road. But I ended up, it was still only 2 guys traveling and one equipment manager.
Wow. And what I was telling my friend months ago is that I think the trainers are the eyes and ears of the locker room. Is that true? In your opinion, is that what you did? You told the coach everything that would happen?
No, we only tell the coach about the injuries, who can play and who can't play.
Was there any trainers that did that?
You know, the coaches ask questions, and I tell them my line was, if you want to give me detective's pay, then maybe I'd be a detective. But, you know, you don't. That's just. You know, you don't tell. You know, you don't tell on your players anything that's going on. No. That's the coach has to find things out about players themselves.
Did you know any trainers that did that, or from other teams, or no?
No, I think that it's a set thing that you know, you don't last long. You know, you'd be out the door.
And I wanted to get into
those players that leave. Those players that leave, they go to other teams. Then they become management on other teams, and you can develop a reputation that's undesirable.
Yeah.
If you're ringing the bell on players, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure. I wanted to ask you about the Marty McSorley stick curve incident in the '93 finals. They were playing Montreal, and he got called for illegal stick. What do you recall on that?
Well, all our sticks were in the rack, in the stick rack, by the benches, and we were, and both benches were on the Montreal side of the rink, and so we would, at the end of the period, the hallway was really narrow, so in order to accommodate the fans going in and up and in and out of that hallway, they'd move the stick racks into the Montreal room, into their hallway inside a closed door.
Oh.
So they were able to measure the sticks. They measured our sticks and found which ones were legal and which ones weren't. Some guys they'll play with an illegal stick, but if it gets down to crunch time in a game, then maybe they change it. You know, and but anyway, Marty just happened to be on the ice, and it just happened to be his stick that they chose, and you know, it still has tarnished his you know, his view from other people that you know, he playing with a legal stick, and they caught him, and it's too bad because you know, we ended up didn't do very well in that game, and we would have gone home with a two games to none lead, and but then we went home after losing that game in Montreal, and we couldn't score goals, and they beat us and won the cup, and it was, you know, chance of a lifetime, and
Yeah.
we didn't get it done.
What did Barry Melrose say in the dressing room after that happened, after the game? Were you there to hear what he had to say?
I was there. I can't remember. My memory's good. It's just short, Jack.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
other
a lot of stuff. I just try to remember a lot of stuff, and
So a lot of things happened over the years.
yeah, a lot of things happened over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. How many loads of laundry did you do in a day for the team with jerseys, and where did the jerseys get cleaned? Was it in a machine or cleaners?
Well, we'd wash the jerseys
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, but every couple of games, after the game, I would take all the jerseys. First, I would go to Culver Rink with the gear myself, and not with the equipment guy. He'd rather go in the morning, but in the morning we'll rush too much. So I wanted to take the gear at night. So I take the gear over, and then I would drive out to East LA to South San Pedro Street, and one of our janitors in the Forum, his wife had a cleaning business in South San Pedro Street, and I drive out there with the jerseys and drop them off, and she would clean the jerseys, get the black marks off from the friction tape, and sew up any holes in the jerseys, and then Carlos would bring the jerseys back the next game day. We do that every few games, depending. Otherwise, we just wash the jerseys ourselves, and so we had big commercial washers, two of them, and we would do 2 loads of laundry with their long johns that they wore, and now they were in pajamas or shorts and T-shirts, but and their socks and stuff, and we'd wash that, and so that would be 2 loads, and then the jerseys would be another load, and then after every workout, we'd be putting the laundry in, and but then we started to be able to get the guy in the Forum, the janitors in the Forum would help us with the laundry and put stuff. We'd start it maybe, and then they'd put it in the dryer. In fact, we had a real bout with they called it NHL gunk. It was a rash that the players developed, and they think it's from the players, the wood sticks. They had fiberglass on them as protecting, and the players would shave those wood sticks with a rasp to try to get them the shape that they wanted them in. They're all the sticks were wood back then. They think that fine particles of fiberglass got into their skin, and caused this rash. So I would wash the gear often, and so one day I took the goalie gear down and washed Rogie's gear. I just washed his chest protector, arm and belly pads was kind of one unit, and I put that in the washer. And then when I went down to the dryer, maybe I kind of forgot about it. Then I said, I got to go get Rogie's gear and bring it back and let it hang dry all night. But the janitor had put Rogie's gear, Rogie's belly pad and arm and belly pad in the dryer.
Oh.
And the belly pad was leather.
Oh.
And it was like this. It was smaller than the size of a pizza when it came out.
Oh no!
It was tiny. It shrunk up to nothing. That's the only time Rogie was a real mellow guy, but that's the only time I saw Rogie upset was.
Oh man!
You had to get him new stuff,
Yeah,
But some goalies are temperamental about stuff. Other goalies aren't. I remember in Springfield we had Billy Smith there was our goalie, and they broke into the room through a window and reached in and through this window, and they took Billy Smith's pants, arm and belly pads, gloves, everything, stole it, and he had to wear new gear the next day, and didn't faze him at all,
Wow,
and,
that's amazing.
But some players wore the same shoulder pads their whole career.
Yeah.
And SB 95 Coopers, and now the pads are so protective, it's unbelievable,
Yeah, it's like an armor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I want to ask.
And the gloves.
The gloves
I'll
are
just tell
light.
you about the gloves. If you look at old pictures of Marcel Dion, he's got these long cuff gloves on, a 16-inch Cooper gloves, leather, and now they wear these tiny gloves. The hands and fingers, everything is still the same size, but the cuffs are really small. There's almost nothing there, and it really makes them vulnerable for injuries between the glove, the top of the glove, and the bottom of their elbow pad. But they want these gloves. They think they're more flexible and they're easier to handle a puck with them. But it didn't affect Marcel, who wore 16-inch gloves his whole career.
Yeah. Do you remember the time you guys were playing Hartford in the early 80s, and Peter Hollander is a friend of mine, friend of the family, and he got injured. A guy, I was at the game, and a guy stepped over his wrist with a skate. Do you remember that?
I remember Peter Hollander.
And
I
he
can't
ended his
exactly remember.
career. His career ended that game. The guy stepped from Hartford on his wrist with a skate and cut him, and then that was it. It was like the where the laces are. I think he had the laces off, and the
Uh-huh.
glove twisted, and he got right on the skin. And I remember
Yeah, I think now I do remember that. Yeah, yeah.
he cut it. It got
Yeah,
cut
that's
like
a dangerous spot.
yeah. Uh,
I was just talking to the eye doctor yesterday. I went to the eye doctor
Mhm.
yesterday, and I was just talking to her about the previous eye doctor, Howard Lazarson, who died recently. One night we were playing the Islanders, and Denny Potvin, he had the puck, and Butch Goring was right behind him, and Butch Goring reached through Denny's stick and poked the puck away, and Denny reached for the puck himself. He reached out, and his skate came up and hit Butch right in the eye.
Oh.
And Dr. Lazarson stayed 2 nights in the hospital with Butch Goring. He almost lost his eye.
Oh man.
So
Scary.
now they wear those shields. They're really helpful.
Yeah. And you're a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame and United States Hall of Fame, and
I'm an Hockey Hall of Fame honoree, and I'm in the and there's a plaque. My plaque's in the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto.
nice. That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That's a big honor.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have been had a great career, and I'm glad to see that it's not for me, but it's the trainers being recognized
Yeah.
in all these different Hall of Fames. It's great.
The trainers don't get enough recognition, that's for sure. And the stick boy, they do a lot for the team, and the players know it, but the fans don't see that part of the game. And
Well, the trainers have a direct impact on the success of the team, and as do the equipment managers and all the staff, behind the scenes staff. You know,
yeah, it's
we
like
don't
making
just open the door in the morning. You know, we're there, heart and soul.
yeah. Everybody works together as a team. It's so important to have that helping everybody. I'm sure it made a difference in their game. I remember having the trainers. They're always there for us when I played, and we can't thank them enough.
Yeah. Players know they're appreciative.
Yeah. Pete, I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. It's an honor to have you. And
Okay, well, thanks very much, Jack.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
Thank you.
We might do another one. I'm thinking part 2.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
absolutely. You got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.